air along the winding mountain pass grows unnaturally cold as midnight approaches. Thick fog rolls down from the dense canopy of the jungle, hiding the steep drops. You are driving alone on one of the most notorious stretches of asphalt in Southeast Asia. This path holds terrifying secrets that defy logic and reason entirely. Welcome to the Karak Highway in Malaysia, stretching across the dark spine of the Titiwangsa Mountains. This treacherous road connects the capital city of Kuala Lumpur to the eastern coast. However, it is far more than a simple transportation route. For decades, travelers have whispered about the sinister entities waiting in the suffocating shadows. Constructed in the 1970s, the highway cut aggressively through ancient, untouched rainforests. Local indigenous tribes warned that the construction disturbed sacred ground and awakened ancient spirits. Massive earth movers tore away hillsides, destroying natural habitats and uprooting trees that had stood as silent guardians of the deep jungle for thousands of years. The destruction of this primordial landscape came with a heavy cost. Many workers lost their lives during the arduous building process due to mysterious accidents and landslides. Locals began to claim that the mountain itself was demanding a blood sacrifice. To compensate for the violent intrusion into a domain previously untouched by modern humanity. Tragedy struck with brutal force in 1990 when a massive collision occurred near the toll plaza. A passenger bus collided with multiple vehicles, resulting in 17 horrific deaths. The twisted metal and shattered glass covered the damp road. Many believe this catastrophic event forever stained the highway with restless souls seeking ultimate peace. Since that fateful day, the Karak Highway has maintained a dark reputation as a cursed corridor. Drivers frequently report an overwhelming sense of dread as they enter the long tunnels cutting through the solid stone. The radio signals die out, leaving them in absolute silence, except for the hum of their own vehicle engine. The isolation experienced on this road during the late hours of the night is truly terrifying. There are very few streetlights illuminating the dark, twisting bends. The towering trees on either side lean inward, creating a claustrophobic tunnel of branches. It feels as though the dense jungle is actively trying to swallow travelers whole. Among the many terrifying legends born on this cursed stretch, one stands out for its strange and persistent nature. Drivers traveling alone in the dead of night often report a sudden strange sight in their rearview mirror. A small, bright yellow Volkswagen Beetle emerges from the thick fog, moving at an unnaturally slow pace. The yellow car travels in the fast lane, moving steadily, but without any engine noise. Frustrated drivers behind it inevitably flash their headlights and honk their horns, demanding that the slow vehicle move aside. As they finally swerve around the older car, instinctively glance over to see who is driving the strange machine. To their absolute horror, there is no driver behind the wheel. The front seat is completely empty, yet the car maintains its perfect trajectory along the curved road. The moment the passing driver realizes this terrifying fact, they inevitably speed up in a desperate panic, trying to put distance between themselves and the phantom. But the nightmare does not end there. No matter how fast the terrified driver accelerates, the yellow Volkswagen somehow appears ahead of them again. It waits in the darkness, crawling along the road, and forcing the driver to overtake it once more. This impossible loop continues, repeatedly trapping the victim in a psychological torment. Elders in the surrounding villages advise travelers never to overtake the yellow car if they encounter it. They claim the phantom vehicle is a malicious entity designed to test the patience and arrogance of living souls. Those who show anger and aggressively pass the car mark themselves as targets for the spirits of the mountain. Some say the yellow vehicle belonged to a betrayed wife who was murdered by her unfaithful husband on the side of the road. Her angry spirit now possesses the very car she drove forever, searching for the man who ended her life. The vehicle wanders the highway, eternally fueled by a desire for dark revenge. If you look closely at the windows of the yellow car, some witnesses claim you can see the faint outline of a bloody handprint on the glass. The air around the vehicle drops below freezing, causing frost to form on the surrounding asphalt. Even the jungle insects fall completely silent as the phantom glides past. Yet the yellow phantom is merely one of the horrors lurking on the Karak Highway. A far more ancient and malevolent entity calls the surrounding forest her home. She is a creature born of pure suffering and intense sorrow, deeply rooted in the folklore of Malaysia, and feared by every single local resident without exception. They call her the Pontianak. According to ancient legends, she is the vengeful spirit of a woman who died during childbirth. She returns from the grave unable to find peace in the afterlife. Her singular purpose is to terrorize the living, feeding on their fear and inflicting the very agony she experienced upon her victims. Witnesses describe her as a terrifying figure, clothed in a tattered white burial shroud. Her face is exceptionally pale, and her incredibly long, unkempt black hair obscures her features. But her most disturbing traits are her eyes, which glow with a piercing demonic red light in the pitch black darkness of the dense Malaysian jungle. Her arrival is almost always preceded by a distinct and unsettling scent, a sweet floral fragrance similar to blooming frangipani flowers suddenly fills the air inside the vehicle. This beautiful smell is a deceptive trap meant to confuse the victim. Shortly after, the sweet scent is entirely replaced by the overpowering stench of rotting flesh. The smell of decay is accompanied by the sound of a woman crying softly in the distance. The crying sounds deeply mournful, echoing through the trees and penetrating the closed windows of passing cars. Folklore dictates a terrifying rule regarding her voice, which has sealed the dreadful fate of many uneducated travelers on this road. If the weeping sounds loud and clear, it means the Pontianak is far away in the forest. However, if the crying sounds very soft and distant, it means she is standing right next to you. The softer the sound becomes, the closer the monster has approached, leaving no time for the victim to escape safely. One terrifying account involves a young man driving back to Kuala Lumpur late at night. The radio began emitting heavy static before completely dying. The temperature inside his car plummeted, causing his breath to form white clouds in the cabin. Suddenly, the heavy scent of frangipani overwhelmed his senses, causing his stomach to churn violently. He heard a faint, whispering cry that seemed to come from directly behind his seat. Glancing in his rearview mirror, he expected to see an empty back seat. Instead, he saw a woman in a filthy white dress, sitting perfectly still. Her head was bowed, and long black hair cascaded over her pale, ghostly face. Panic seized his chest as he slammed his foot onto the accelerator pedal. The engine roared, but the car felt incredibly heavy, as if an unnatural weight pushed down on the rear axle. The crying in the back seat grew softer and more distant, indicating that the terrible spirit was moving closer to his neck. He refused to look back again, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned completely white. A freezing cold breath touched his right ear, followed by a low guttural laugh that vibrated through his bones. The entity leaned forward, bringing the horrific smell of an open grave directly into the enclosed space of the car. Desperate to survive, he began reciting prayers, loudly ignoring the terrifying presence sitting beside him. The creature shrieked, violently shattering the glass of the passenger side window. The sudden explosion of glass forced him to swerve sharply, missing the concrete barrier of the dark highway by mere inches before regaining control of the damaged vehicle. When he finally reached the bright lights of the toll plaza, the creature was entirely gone. He collapsed onto the steering wheel, trembling uncontrollably. The toll booth operator took one look at his pale face and the shattered window and immediately understood. The operator slowly nodded, acknowledging the ancient evil residing upon the dark mountain. Many others have not been so fortunate in their encounters. There are numerous reports of cars found mysteriously crashed into the deep ravines alongside the highway. Police reports officially cite driver fatigue or slippery roads as the cause of these fatal accidents. But the locals firmly believe the Pontianak claimed those lost souls for herself. Another infamous story revolves around a family traveling through the winding bends. Their car experienced a sudden tire blowout, forcing the father to pull onto the narrow shoulder. He grabbed a flashlight and stepped out into the oppressive humidity of the jungle, leaving his wife and young child securely locked inside the dark, stationary vehicle. Minutes passed in complete silence as the mother watched the beams of his flashlight sweep across the tall grass. Suddenly, the light violently jerked upward and flickered out. The mother rolled down the window, slightly calling out the name of her husband into the darkness. There was no reply, only the rustling of leaves outside. She then heard a heavy, rhythmic thumping sound coming from the roof of their car. Thumpy, thumpy, thumpy. The sound was slow and deliberate, echoing loudly in the enclosed cabin. Her child began to cry uncontrollably, sensing the absolute terror radiating from the mother. The terrible thumping continued without any pause for hours on end. Paralyzed by sheer terror, the mother held her child closely and prayed for the sun to rise. She did not dare to open the doors or look outside. Finally, the flashing blue lights of a police patrol car illuminated the foggy road. A uniformed officer stepped out and cautiously approached their parked vehicle, holding a weapon. Using a loudspeaker, the officer commanded the woman to start her engine and drive forward slowly. He strictly warned her not to look back under any circumstances. Trembling, she turned the key and slowly pulled the car away from the dark shoulder of the road. But human curiosity proved to be an overwhelming, fatal flaw. As she drove away, she instinctively glanced into the rearview mirror. High above the road, perched on the branch of a massive banyan tree, sat the Pontianak. The horrific creature held the severed head of her husband, dropping it repeatedly onto the roof of the car. The monster smiled, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. This horrific tale has been shared around Malaysian campfires for multiple decades, serving as a grim warning. Never stop your vehicle on the Karak Highway at night. If your car breaks down, you must stay inside, lock the doors, and never investigate strange noises outside. The jungle hides predators that possess no earthly or human limitations. The spiritual energy of the location is undeniably heavy and deeply oppressive. Religious leaders from various faiths have attempted multiple cleansing rituals along the dangerous route over the past 30 years. They burn incense, chant holy scriptures, and offer prayers to pacify the restless entities residing there. Yet the terrifying phenomena continue to persist unabated today. Some paranormal researchers believe the highway acts as a massive spiritual artery. The aggressive blasting of the mountain rocks during construction might have destroyed ancient wards that kept malevolent forces contained. The road now serves as a conduit, allowing these dark spirits to travel freely between the deep jungle and the edges of the human world. There is also a prominent tunnel along the route known as the Genting Sempa Tunnel, nearly 3,000 feet long. It is a marvel of modern engineering, but drivers constantly report seeing dark shadow figures walking slowly along the pedestrian walkways inside. These figures vanish entirely when the headlights of a car illuminate their path. Motorcyclists share particularly chilling experiences regarding the long tunnel. The lack of a protective metal cabin makes riders feel incredibly vulnerable to unseen forces. Many claim to feel icy, unseen hands grabbing their shoulders as they ride through the center of the dark underpass. Some have even been violently pulled off their moving bikes by nothing. One rider detailed an experience where a ghostly boy ran directly across his path inside the tunnel. The child wore torn traditional clothing from a forgotten era, unable to stop the rider braced for a brutal impact. Instead, his motorcycle passed straight through the child, leaving behind a lingering smell of damp earth and rotting leaves. The local authorities strongly dismiss these supernatural claims. They point out that the steep inclines, sharp corners, and heavy fog create highly dangerous driving conditions. They argue that fatigue, combined with sensory deprivation, tricks the human brain into hallucinating terrible monsters. Yet science fails to explain the terrifying collective consistency of these deeply disturbing eyewitness accounts. Truck drivers who transport goods across the country frequently rely on spiritual talismans to protect themselves. They hang small protective amulets from their rearview mirrors and recite specific prayers before turning onto the highway. These hardened men, who fear very little in life, speak of the Karak Highway with a profound and genuine sense of dread. Sometimes the yellow Volkswagen and the Pontianak are seen on the very same night by the same unfortunate driver. Locals suggest the phantom car distracts the driver, forcing them to slow down and lose focus. This creates the perfect opportunity for the female demon to attach herself to the vulnerable vehicle and begin her psychological torture. The psychological toll on frequent travelers is immense and incredibly visible. Many drivers refuse to travel the road between midnight and the early hours of dawn entirely. They would rather wait at busy gas stations drinking coffee until the sun fully rises over the mountain peaks. Sunlight seems to force the ancient evil back into hiding. Even during daylight, the thick vegetation bordering the tarmac looks incredibly imposing. The giant ferns and massive broadleaf plants seem to swallow the light. If you stare deeply into the jungle shadows, you can almost feel unseen eyes staring back at you. It is a constant reminder that humanity is merely a temporary guest in this domain. Film directors and writers have drawn massive inspiration from these enduring legends. Numerous local horror movies have recreated the terrors of the yellow car and the weeping ghost. These cinematic portrayals keep the dark folklore alive in the modern public consciousness. ensuring that each new generation learns to fear the twisting asphalt of the ancient mountain pass. Despite the terrifying stories, the highway remains a vital and extremely busy transportation artery. Thousands of cars pass through the mountainous region every single day. Most drivers reach their destination safely without witnessing anything out of the ordinary. But the statistical probability of a safe journey provides very little comfort when the midnight fog rolls in. The road itself demands absolute respect and total concentration from everyone. The moment a driver lets their guard down the treacherous curves can easily claim a life. It is as if the physical danger and the spiritual darkness work perfectly together. They form a deadly alliance aimed at punishing those who dare to travel through the mountains. There is a deeply rooted superstition regarding the radio when driving this route. If your music suddenly cuts out and changes to static, do not attempt to tune the station. Turn the device off completely. Some drivers claim that listening to the static for too long allows the voices of the dead to whisper into your mind. They hear desperate pleas for help coming from the speakers. The voices belong to the victims of past crashes, begging to be rescued from the burning wreckage of their tragic ends. Answering these voices, or showing them deep sympathy, supposedly invites the lost spirits to climb into the vehicle and accompany you on your remaining lonely journey. If you find yourself forced to travel the Karak Highway under the light of the moon, remember the warnings of the elders. Keep your eyes firmly fixed on the road ahead. Do not acknowledge any strange smells or inexplicable sounds within your cabin. Maintain a steady speed and never attempt to overtake a slow-moving yellow car. Most importantly, if you see a woman walking alone on the shoulder of the highway, wearing a white dress, do not offer her a ride. Even if she appears injured or lost, you must drive past her without making eye contact. Looking directly into her glowing red eyes will invite a terrible curse upon your entire family. The legends of the mountains are not merely ghost stories meant to scare children. They are terrifying historical records of a landscape that violently rejects human interference. The spirits of the ancient jungle have existed long before the asphalt was laid down, and they will remain long after the concrete crumbles back into dust and dirt entirely. Every patch of dark fog hiding the next sharp turn could conceal the yellow phantom. Every gust of wind rattling the windows could carry the sorrowful weeping of the terrifying demon. The boundary between the world of the living and the realm of the dead is completely shattered on this specific cursed stretch of Malaysian dark road. So as you grip the steering wheel and drive deeper into the unforgiving darkness of the Titiwangsa Mountains, ask yourself a terrifying question. Are you truly alone in your car right now? Or is there a cold, unseen presence sitting quietly in the back seat, patiently waiting for the perfect moment to reveal its true horrific form. The Karak Highway waits patiently for its next victim to enter the misty valleys. The spirits are always hungry, and the long winding road demands eternal payment. Drive safely, keep your doors locked, and pray that you survive the journey through the heart of the haunted Malaysian jungle without joining the countless souls lost in the shadows.